Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends! What an amazing day it is. Happy Tuesday and welcome back. I hope your day has been outstanding and incredible. We've got a bunch of business to attend to, a lot of legal news, several filings that we'll go through. Several of them are quite long, so we'll hit the highlights and just get to the juicy bits. But some good victories today. The Catholics and their NGOs got blown out. And I'm a Catholic. We'll talk about it. We also had Judge Amir, the case we've been following with the USAID funds. That's getting whittled way back down. And we'll read through what his final order was because we kind of saw this one coming. We'll talk about the lawyers. Mark Elias Perkins Coie is the name, which sounds much more appropriate. I was calling it Perkins Coy because they are a bunch of coy fellows, but they're also cooey too, you know, ew. So we've got that update. We're going to talk about them. They're freaked out. They hired some law firm and they're suing Trump. We got Congress, though, just passed the CR in the House of Representatives. And so I was watching this. This was minutes ago. If you missed it, here is what it sounded like from within the House of Representatives moments ago. And it came down to the wire, flipped over.
All right, as you just see that one pop up on the screen, one Democrat voting in favor. Let's listen in.
The nays are 213. The bill is passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
All right.
Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is on the vote of the passage of H.J. 25, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. Clerk will report the title of the joint resolution.
Union Calendar number 3, House Joint Resolution.
All right.
So there was
see that
one Democrat who voted, and I believe it was some dude from Maine. And then, of course, we had Thomas Massie who voted against it. So we had one person from either side flip, and we still love Thomas Massie here. We appreciate his debt clock. We know we're spending way too much, but we do need this money, according to Trump and the administration, to get us through the end of September, and then we can start to cut and rescind some funds. And that's going to be the next big question that we'll talk a lot about today, which is really a rescission of funds. Because, yes, the money, like these things are being cut, but the money has still been appropriated by Congress. So the next big question becomes whether or not Trump has to spend that money. And I was just double checking here, as you can see, to make sure that there's nothing else live from the president because he was live a little bit earlier. So we're clear. But that's what Congress is up to. We got some wild things happening in Congress. This was a wild exchange here. We'll come back on that one. All hell breaks loose after, quote, Sarah McBride is accurately called a Mr. And Wokeness posted that one over there. So Mr. Battles in Congress. We'll come back. We'll save that for the end. But we've got some good legal filings today, starting out of the District of Columbia. More NGOs who sued Trump lose. This time, it's the Catholics, the Catholic bishops, so-called United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. And I don't know if this is a legit organization or not. Don't really care. Don't have any idea why they're getting American taxpayer dollars. Because as a Catholic, I put money in to the little bin, all right? I thought we were paying for this. I didn't know I was also paying for it out of my federal income tax, for crying out loud. So we have questions about it. They sued. Where's our money? And by the way, okay, many of these entities like the Lutherans and all of the Christian groups, we've seen a lot of them, and other groups, have come out and been very upset that their money's been cut off. And you're saying, what kind of Catholicism are you doing trafficking humans across the border? Is that what Jesus taught? I'm not sure. So they sued the U.S. Department of State. This is an opinion that came down in the form of an order from the judge in the District of Columbia. It's a 16-pager, and it's delicious because it is a victory for the Department of State and against the Catholics who just want to siphon off the money out of the government. So here's what the judge wrote. And just to be clear, this judge is somebody we haven't heard a lot from here. Judge Trevor N. McFadden, U.S. District Court Judge. And here's what he said to the so-called Catholic bishops. He says, all right, listen, the Catholics are here and they're seeking a preliminary injunction that's preventing the government from pausing or canceling contracts between them. And as we've talked about with other USAID money, many of these contracts just have blank forms in there. I don't know exactly what paragraph, but we suspect it's paragraph G or whatever, K, doesn't matter. that has cancellation. And we've seen some of the language that says that the US government has basically sold unilateral authority to cancel things that are not in the interest of the United States. So they've done that. So these contracts require the government to fund the resettlement services to the refugees. Aha, see, there it is. Yeah. To facilitate illegal immigration. To resettle, not refugees, illegal aliens. But this court, sorry, we cannot offer your relief there, Catholics. The conference's motion, the bishop's motion, is at its core seeking a contractual remedy. They file suing Trump saying, he's violating the Constitution. The judge says, no, he's not. It's a contract. Go file in the Court of Federal Claims. That's been set up for you for these types of claims. And the Catholic so-called bishops, their desired remedy is inconsistent with other equitable remedies like injunctions. And so therefore, the Catholic bishops are hereby denied. So they say, the judge writes, look, okay, for over 60 years, okay, the government has aided refugees. Now, this mission started in the thick of the Cold War when Congress appropriated money to address the urgent refugee and migration needs for people who are fleeing the communist countries. Now, we're becoming one. Not anymore. Now, Migration and Refugee Assistance Act was the bill that allowed that to happen. So later, then Congress passed something else called the Refugee Act of 1980, created a formal framework for refugees. Now, this initiative called the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program, thereby then created a permanent and systematic procedure for the admission of refugees who have special humanitarian concern. This has been exploited all over the place. And admit them into the country. So refugees who have been persecuted or have fear of persecution abroad as a result of these programs can seek legal admission into the United States throughout these programs. There's the U.S. code that authorizes that. But there is no rubber stamp for these admissions. Just because you apply doesn't mean you get in. At the meta level, the president sets a cap on the maximum number of refugees who can be admitted annually. That's in the U.S. code in 3 places. And on that ground, an extensive vetting process takes place. In fact, applicants are rigorously screened in their home countries for eligibility. Are you really being prosecuted here? Yes, I am. Saddam Hussein is coming to kill me like tomorrow. Oh, okay, let's get you out of here. Before they can be admitted to the United States, they must undergo detailed interviews, medical examinations, biometric assessments, among other things. And that these refugees, these asylees, they keep telling us. These are people who just show up to the border and come across and walk across, not doing any of these things. So if admitted, refugees assimilating to their new homes are then offered aid under various provisions. Now, though this enterprise is multifaceted, at issue here is the Program of Initial Resettlement, which is under U.S. code. Now, this program envisions, Congress thought this up, a public and private partnership between the Department of State and nonprofits, right? The government steals everybody's money from them in the form of taxes and then gives them to these so-called nonprofits that are really for profit for themselves. The state's Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration is authorized to enter into annual cooperative agreements with private resettlement agencies whose mission it is to aid refugees in their critical first weeks in the United States. Now, under these agreements, these awards were granted in specific sums to each agency to reimburse them for their costs. The funding covers everything: transportation, airport, housing, food, and clothing. It also helps get refugees access to social, medicinal, educational, employment services, and more. Now, the support given in the first 3 months is essential, as lost opportunities for English and job training can't be made up for later. This is what they're saying. So we need our money now. Like, these people are going to come to America and not learn English or something. Now, the conference is one of 10 resettlement agencies that got a bunch of money under this program, the Catholic bishops. We also saw, I think it was like the Lutherans and others. I don't know if the Jews are in on it. I don't know if the Muslims got in on the grift or whatever, but definitely I've seen the Catholics and the Lutherans for sure. You'll have to let me know. So for the conference, though, helping refugees is no minor avocation. Its participation in the admission program reflects the Catholic Church's longstanding commitment to migrants and refugees. Tell that to the Vatican and their walls, huh? The commitment and their honors the Holy Family's refugee status during their flight to Egypt, says this additional complaint referencing the Bible, Matthew. So in line with this mission, the conference is like, we're doing the work of Jesus. That's why we need this money, Jesus. Okay. In line with this mission, the conference has partnered with the federal government for over 40 years to provide initial resettlement services to refugees. And today, the bishops run the largest non-governmental resettlement program in the country. Gosh. Serving roughly 17% of resettling refugees. So for fiscal year 2025, the conference entered into 2 cooperative agreements with the PRM, awarding the conference about $65 million for initial resettlement. What? We never talked about this at church. This is crazy. One of these agreements covers refugees and awards around $43 million in funding. Man, I'm gonna put a lot less money in those dishes when they come around. The hell is this? While the others cover special immigrant visa holders from Afghanistan, $22 million in funding there. Now, both contracts run from October 1st to September 30th and more. At least they were meant to. They're canceled now. But their continuing viability was cast into doubt beginning on January 20th. That afternoon, President Trump emerged. He said, "You're all cut off." He signed an executive order titled Reevaluating Foreign Aid from Grifting Losers. And the foreign aid order directed relevant executive branch officials to institute a 90-day pause. In fact, the same day, Trump suspended the entry of most new refugees into the United States, afuera. Shortly afterward, then, Rubio issued his own initiative consistent with the order. He said also USAID money also cut off. Later that day, the rest of the government started to work. PRM complied. It sent a suspension letter to the Catholic bishops that immediately suspended funds under the conference's cooperative agreements pending a department-wide review of foreign assistance programs. The suspension letter ordered the conference to stop all work under the awards and don't get any more money. The letter said the pause was consistent with the president's order, and you're no longer effectuating agency priorities. So it's not working for us anymore, Catholic bishops. But the conference already had millions of dollars in requested reimbursements pending with the state. And more, without the funding, the thousands of refugees already in its care would lack support. Like, we're going to be cut out from under us. The conference filed suit. They sought a TRO. Days later, this court held oral hearings on the motion. It denied the request from the bishops. It said, sorry, guys, there's no irreparable harm here. Wait, you want me to tell the executive branch to go in and pay you guys a bunch of money and give you a bunch of stuff? There is no reason to have this exigent, extraordinary remedy right now, said the judge. But the court did stress it's not making any conclusive ruling. You can come back here later and get a preliminary injunction, but we're not pausing things right now. So that's what this ruling is now on the PI. So the court thus issued an expedited briefing and set up a hearing that we covered. So just 2 days before the hearing, guess what happened? The State Department doubled down. In fact, it was going to be a pause until the court started meddling with this. And then they had no choice but to go cancel everything. Oh, if we can't pause it, we have to unpause it. Guess what? It's just canceled. So we can't unpause anything that's canceled. What are you going to do about that, Judge Amir? On February 26th, the state issued 2 formal notices of termination to the Catholic so-called bishops, canceling the cooperative agreements between the conference and the PRM. The justification behind the termination was simple. Guess what? Your agreements no longer effectuated agency priorities. We don't need you bringing in $100 million worth of refugees into our country via the prior administration. No thanks. You're done. We don't need them. We're not bringing them in. We don't need your services. So the PRM thus terminated the awards. They said, see, as we suspected, standard terms and conditions into applicable awards, even codified in the Code of Federal Regulations. So maybe it's not even tucked away in the contracts. It might just be in the regulations too. This was based on federal regs incorporated into the cooperative agreements that permit the termination to the greatest extent authorized by law if the award no longer effectuates programs or goals. So we baked it into this agreement with you guys, saying we can do this. So we did it. We sent you the letter. It was done effective immediately. Now the court here, this judge is writing, I asked for an updated briefing to explain the legal salience of termination as opposed to a suspension. Is there a distinction here between the two? That briefing was submitted. And so then they amended their motion for a preliminary injunction. So the bishops came back and they say, we're still going to win. I mean, it was suspended. Now it's terminated. So what's the difference? Well, we're going to win. If it was suspended, we can get them to unsuspend it. Okay, well, it's not suspended. It's canceled now. Okay, well, All right, our arguments are a little different now, but we can still win that one. Okay, he says, well, the termination is contrary to various federal laws, including congressional statutes. It also insists that the sudden termination was arbitrary and capricious, and you just can't make sudden changes in an arbitrary and capricious manner under the APA. Now, more, the bishops also say that it meets all other requirements to earn our relief. We're going to suffer irreparable injury, and the public would be interested in this relief. So the conference asks the court to stop Trump from implementing, enforcing, or giving any effect to any freeze, pause, or otherwise the prevention of the disbursement of the money back to the Catholic refugees, so-called. So the government says, ridiculous, Judge, this court lacks jurisdiction over this action. In fact, you can't even hear this case. They're mad about a contract that was canceled pursuant to the terms of the contract. Look at the Tucker Act, not that Tucker. It directs all contract disputes with the federal government to the Court of Federal Claims. According to the government, writes the judge, the sole basis for the conference's motion is grounded in the cooperative agreements. Okay, they're suing based on the agreements, and the agreement is a contract, and there's a whole court set up for contracts. They admit it, saying we're totally divested of any authority on this, right? And this is a big rule that this judge is about to lay down, because all these people are suing about my money and my contracts, and they're all whining about this. So when this judge comes back down and says, actually, we don't have jurisdiction, you should not be here, Trump is going to take this decision that came out today and shove it in front of every other judge and say, look, morons, you don't have the jurisdiction to hear these claims. But even if this court did have jurisdiction, says the government, this conference from the bishops would still be fruitless. The termination decision was neither contrary to the law. We canceled their contract pursuant to the contract. And it was neither arbitrary or capricious, because it's literally connected to a different policy that we're implementing, which is we're not flooding the country with so-called refugees. Finally, the government also says that the bishop is not suffering any irreparable harm, nor enjoys the favor of equities and the public interest, right? So the judge lays all that out for us. Tells us, a preliminary injunction is an extraordinary and drastic remedy. It's never awarded as a matter of right, unless you're Donald Trump and you're a liberal Democratic plaintiff who is suing him in a District of Columbia court or a Southern District of New York court or a Northern District of California court. The movement faces a very high bar. Remember, we've talked about these 4 things here a million times. We should all have them baked into our memory now at this point. You probably do. But it is, first of all, that it's likely to succeed on the merit, that you'll suffer irreparable harm if the court doesn't do anything. You balance the equities, and the scale tips in favor of granting the injunction or the relief, and the public interest favors them. Now, the burden is on the so-called bishops to show that they're in the right court and that they've made a claim. And federal courts presume that they have jurisdiction, right? We start with this idea that the court can hear the case. Here's what the judge says in subsection 3. Well, guess what? The bishop is unlikely to prevail on the merits of this case. Oh my goodness. Because this court lacks the authority to grant the relief it seeks. The requested relief is incompatible with the government's sovereign immunity. Wow. So we want that, right, to now catch fire. Like this is the first domino. We've been in the District of Columbia a lot. Lots of judges there. And things are starting to split. Some are going this way. Some go this way. And we've made the point many times. We've read several orders here. Oh, the court has jurisdiction, morons. Even the one we read yesterday or last week from Judge Colleen, I think DC, she said that we absolutely have jurisdiction for similar types of claims, but they lose because of the irreparable harm, right? So there's all these different elements and all these different areas where the lawsuits against Trump can be dumped out. Okay, you're gone here, falling down the chute, funk, 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 different ways to launch it out. And this is a good one. Sovereign immunity. Oh, send that into every other courtroom. So the judge says, listen, let's start with the basics here, okay? Some people, a plaintiff like the bishops, are requesting emergency relief against the government. They also have to identify, if you're going to sue the government's immune, right? In many ways from many things. If you got a problem with the government, you go vote. You don't file a lawsuit against them. This is called the political question doctrine. You don't just get to sue people in the government because you're unhappy with them. That's why we have an electoral process. So you can sue where the government says, you can sue us. We waive that. So the conference, the bishops, they point to the APA saying, well, there's a waiver. But it comes with a catch, the judge says. It does not apply if any other statute that grants consent to suit expressly or impliedly forbids the relief which is sought, quoting another case. Now, the Trump government and really Marco Rubio say that the Tucker Act, not that Tucker, impliedly forbids the APA's sovereign immunity waiver. Okay, so another act is saying there is no sovereign immunity for claims brought under the APA. There is no waiver of sovereign immunity. In other words, there is sovereign immunity. You can't sue the government under the APA. The Tucker Act grants the Court of Federal Claims exclusive jurisdiction over certain suits against the government, like by these Catholics, included those founded upon any contract with the United States. Wow. Broad. This court and others have interpreted the Tucker Act as providing the exclusive remedy for contract claims against the government. Thus, if the present motion is grounded in contract, the APA does not waive the government's immunity from suit. So they're immune. So I can't hear this case. The district court cannot afford the requested relief. Yes, right, that's huge. But determining whether a dispute is at its essence contractual, it's not always simple. Is this a contract now? So if it is a contract, I can't hear it. So let's ask, is it a contract? Judge says, well, on the one hand, a mere cameo by a contract in a lawsuit that is otherwise based on federal law is not enough, right? So if somebody's like, well, we did sign a contract, or somebody else, if it just mentioned it's not part of the actual dispute. Even if a dispute implicates a contract, it may be heard in the district court if there's a statute or the Constitution which is violated. Now, on the other hand, courts are to be wary of plaintiffs like these bishops artfully pleading their way around the jurisdictional strictures of the Tucker Act. Yes, man, this is a smart judge. Artfully pleading, okay, moving around the jurisdictional strictures, saying, oh, well, no, well, obviously he violated the Constitution. We're going to put that in our complaint. So you're going to put all the complaints, you're going to sue under the APA, even though you can't sue under the APA. You make that your main complaint, but then you just attach on there a little constitutional argument. Oh, yeah, and he's violating Article 2. Why? I don't know. Shove it in there. Oh, great. So then the judge can just say, well, there's a constitutional claim here, so that gives me jurisdiction over this whole thing, and I can do whatever the hell I want, which is exactly what Judge Amir Ali and these other District of Columbia judges have been doing. So this judge is now breaking with that pact, saying, no, you dorks, you guys got duped by these people artfully pleading away around you, saying you have jurisdiction when you don't. The judge continues, resolving the ultimate inquiry. Is this essentially a contract action? We got to ask two questions. The source of the rights, okay, what is the plaintiff complaining about? Where does their rights come from? And the type of relief sought. Well, he says this one is figured out here. The nature of relief that they want is a contract. In fact, they're asking the court specifically to stop, but they call it enjoin, okay? Enjoin. See how the judge put that in quotes? That's artful pleading. It's not, the other word you could shove in there would be to enforce the contract. But it's not, it's enjoin, right? The government did something, so stop them from doing that. It was a pause. There was a cancellation. No, stop that. Oh, they canceled the contract? No, they did something else. What was it? They did an action that needs to be enjoined. Oh, what, they canceled the contract though? No. He puts it in quotes like, dummies, I caught you, okay? I just busted you with your artful pleading. It's great. From implementing, enforcing, or otherwise giving effect to any rule, implementing, blah, blah, blah. He says, look, stripped of its equitable flair, okay, if you listen to these people, the requested relief is seeking one thing and one thing alone. The Catholic so-called bishops, they want the court to order the government to stop withholding money under their agreements. In even plainer English, for Letitia James and Fannie Willis, says the conference wants the government to keep paying up. Yeah, pay me my money. Thus, the conference seeks the classical contractual remedy of what's called specific performance in contract law. We spend a lot of time on that in contract law. And everybody knows what they're talking about, right? Give me my money, but they're wrapping it up in constitutional equitable flair, and the judge busted them. But this court cannot order the government to pay money on a contract, obviously. Such a request for an order that the government must perform on its contract is one that must be resolved by the claims court. Other judges have even said this. Even Scalia dissented in another case, said it's settled that a sovereign immunity bars a suit against the United States for specific performance of a contract. Already settled. Can't sue for that. So the Supreme Court has even stressed this as well. An injunction to compel the payment of money that's past due, it's not available in equity, meaning you don't get an injunction here. The more appropriate remedy is to go get your back pay, go get your past due monies. Even referencing the AIDS case, which was Alito dissenting, okay? So as we're talking about these dominoes falling, right? This is the first domino that's falling, and this is the judge that's referencing Alito. This is why dissents are important. Alito is giving this judge some cover, saying, listen, you can't bring these claims here. That awkward fit between the relief, and this is going to go back right to the AIDS case, and the AIDS doctor's case will also, we're going to get to that one next, but the judge is walking that one back massively. The awkward fit between the requested relief and the medium employed here only underscores, writes the judge, the inescapable truth. These Catholic bishops seek an award of money, which a court sitting in equity may not grant. And so the court is guided by the DC Circuit opinions, which these other judges have been ignoring apparently, in Spectrum and Ingersoll. In Spectrum, the person suing was a party to a contract, then sued. They stopped paying and sued. The court dismissed the case. Said, we can't hear this case. It's a contract. Get the hell out of here. Similarly, in Ingersoll, the plaintiff said that the Air Force's decision to terminate its contract, right? So some Air Force person got fired, sued. The court said, you can't sue here. This is a contract. Get out. Go sue somewhere else. Now, they keep coming and claiming that they should be here, but the court squints in vain to see any daylight between those cases and this case. Those cases we threw out. This case is not any different. I can't see the difference. Like those plaintiffs, the bishops asked the court to order the government to cancel the termination, pay money due, and reinstate the contracts. That is something this court lacks the power to do. And so the Crowley case doesn't counsel otherwise. That was a military contract case. And there was no order from the district court forcing the contract to be paid. Now, another court in this district recently rejected a similar request from the plaintiffs seeking to revive terminated government contracts. He's referencing the AIDS case that was just decided yesterday. Wow. Okay, we're going to read that next, right? And so this judge is calling out that other judge who is saying, even the AIDS doctor judge, who is the same judge who ordered $2 billion to be paid out by midnight, that same psycho judge. A group of plaintiffs in that case sued, saying Trump can't terminate their contracts. But just like the bishops here, those plaintiffs asked for a preliminary injunction that would, in effect, order the government to continue to contract with them. You have to force the government to continue to contract with you. But the court said that the executive has an obligation to spend appropriated funds, and they have the discretion on how to spend that money. Okay. It's not that they have the power to not spend the money. It's how to spend the money. Okay. And we've said this here many times. The analogy that we like to use is the cutting and bulking phase. Like we're cutting, but we're putting all those pounds back on as it stands right now. Now, I would like to rescind those funds. Currently, the argument is that they're being impounded by the executive branch, and they will be spent accordingly in accordance with the constitutional appropriations of the Congress, is the thesis. Rand Paul is saying we should rescind those funds to claw all that money back. So how is the discretion of the executive? Now, as a result, the court could not order the government to revive specific contracts. The courts are going to force Trump to do business with the Catholics, even though we've got no refugees coming in. So too here, what the conference wants, the bishops, in its preliminary injunction is a reinstatement of a terminated contract. And I cannot do that. And so the bishops resist this, but it's artful efforts to dodge this inevitable The conference falls prey to precisely the sort of creative drafting, sneaky lawyers that Crowley, another case, warns against, right? They say, oh no, we're merely seeking classic equitable remedies available in administrative law. We want an order that is setting aside an agency action. Okay, so it's like the thing that they're arguing about is not the termination or the cancellation of the contract. It's the decision that led to the termination, right? They're going up the chain so that they can identify it at the source of where it went bad and try to fix it. And then that is a constitutional argument, right? And that pulls them outside of the Court of Claims. And all of the other dumb judges out of DC have been buying it. Like, oh yeah, you're right. Marco Rubio. You go, what? He's the Secretary of State. Well, or the Secretary of Treasury, Scott Bessent. Yeah, he can't even look at the spreadsheets at the Treasury Department. Come on, Judge. Those lawsuits should have not even been brought. They're contract disputes, most of them at their core. I got fired. I shouldn't have been fired. Your contract is terminated. Get out. In other words, the conference frames its motions as pursuing equitable relief under the APA. But if you accept that argument, writes this judge, that would distort the obvious. Sure, the bishops seek to set aside an agency action. Yeah, okay. But the agency action that it asks the court to reverse is the government's decision to end a financial relationship with the conference. Okay, so it's the decision to cancel the contract. In other words, they're arguing this is not a claim about a canceled contract. It's about the decision to cancel the contract. And you go, what the hell are you talking about? This is not standard injunctive fare, says the judge. All right. Saying an injunction to compel the payment of money that's past due under a contract was typically not available in equity. And we have know of no case where a court has asserted jurisdiction to issue an injunction compelling the United States to fulfill its contractual obligations, right? Because when a contract is broken, there's a whole subset of law there, right? You have a breach of contract. And then generally within the contract or outside of the four corners of the document, you go to other remedies that you find in law, right? What is the remedy for a breach of contract? You've signed these many times. If you just go to Verizon, fill out the thing, what happens if you cancel? You got to pay up this much up front or whatever to get out of the deal, right? That's the breach. When you cancel the contract, Verizon doesn't go to a court to force you to get back into the contract. There's a breach. They get their remedies from the breach of the contract. So these people, these bishops, if they have a means of getting some remedy, they can go sue in the Court of Federal Claims. Instead, it is a request that the court order the government to pay money owed under a contract. So it's literally specific performance in addition to prospective relief. And so all of this must be heard in the claims court. You're upset about the ending of the contract. The decision to end the contract is in the ending of the contract. So go talk about that in a better jurisdiction. The judge concludes, look, in short, the conference alleges that over the last several weeks, the government paused and then reneged on its contracts, canceled. Now, at issue here is not whether the government had the right to do so, much less whether the government was right to do so. Do they have the right? Yeah. Was it a good decision? Maybe, maybe not. But the question is far narrower. Does this court have the authority to afford the, quote, drastic emergency relief that these so-called bishops are seeking? This court does not. And in reaching this conclusion, this court makes no finding on its jurisdiction over the underlying complaint. So I was a little overeager on that before. So he's not saying he doesn't necessarily have jurisdiction, right? But it's heard in that other jurisdiction too. He's not being clearly saying you should never have filed here. He says right now there's no motion to dismiss before the court that would call for an assessment of this issue at writ large. So I haven't really fleshed this out as much as I could, but I do know that based on the remedy and the type of claim that you're seeking here, I'm the wrong guy. Instead, we're simply holding that it cannot find that the bishops are likely to succeed on the merit because the court has no authority to grant their remedy. Now, this conclusion may not flow to the complaint itself. The nature of the relief sought in the complaint is notably different than that sought in the present motion. Okay, so you filed upset about something, but now you're asking for something else. And those distinctions may matter for jurisdiction, which is why I'm not, right? The judge is saying, I'm only kind of talking about this most recent filing, which is very different than the original complaint. So I can't talk about jurisdiction broadly for all of the filings. I'm only talking about it for this preliminary injunction. At any rate, whether the bishops' request and their relief that sounds not in contract, but in the proper jurisdiction of a district court, right? If there's other things that are not contractual claims, maybe we could hear them, but I'm not looking at those right now. This court wields only that power that's authorized by the Constitution and the statute, and it's not to be expanded by judicial decree. You can't be like Judge Amir Ali, born in Ontario, who orders the State Department to pay out $2 billion to people who are not even parties to the lawsuit. They didn't even sue. Pay them anyways. They're not even here, Judge. You have no right or authority to do that. We canceled their contracts. You're speaking for them. You're representing unrepresented plaintiffs here. Saying to allow the suit to go against the United States based on the contract would ultimately result in the demise of the Court of Claims. It was set up for these claims. That is an abrogation of congressional prerogative and will. Congress made the court, so the claims go to the court. The fact that some Democrats can sue in the District of Columbia and these judges will lap up their arguments that are artfully pleaded and do whatever they want doesn't give them the right to do that, right? It's not allowable. And Congress is a co-equal branch of government. They can't usurp their powers. This court is but a creature of the trifurcated structure of its constitution. It is perhaps when emotions are at their zenith that it is imperative to police political and jurisdictional bounds of these courts. And that is exactly right. Okay, Amy Berman Jackson, Judge Amir Ali, these judges are the types that just say, we're all going to die. So you get whatever you want, plaintiffs, even if it's at the expense of the American people, their own country. In sum, writes this great judge, awesome opinion, Trevor McFadden. Don't know who appointed him, but I loved it. In sum, the conference cannot succeed on the merits because its claims because the court lacks jurisdiction. And so, therefore, its motion for a preliminary injunction is thereby denied. Signed by a great opinion writing judge, Trevor N. McFadden, March 11th, 2025. So a good one. And another big victory for Trump. And I think this is much broader than just this filing because there's now precedent for other claims. And this judge honestly called out a lot of the other judges too. He's like, hey, dummies, stop buying these fake constitutional arguments. They want their jobs back. They want their money back. Those are contract claims. We should not be hearing those just because you hate Trump and you're so mad. So get rid of these cases and let's get the government back to its functional baseline so that each branch can do its job. We don't want the judiciary encroaching on the executive or Congress by taking these cases outside of their jurisdiction. So great decision. We'll see what the bishops do. Whether they appeal or not will be seen. And I don't know if I have to go to a confessional after that segment or not, or if they're even real bishops, but we'll find out. All right, so good updates on that one. Now, let me share with you another update. So we've got, this one's a little bit of a less good ruling, but I wanted to flag it for everybody out there. We'll just cover this one very briefly. But this one also dropped down today. You can see this is a case of the National Endowment for Democracy versus the USA. We haven't been covering this one too in depth, but don't know that we're going to have to do it because it seems like they came to a settlement on this, right? There was a motion from both of them to hold the TRO proceedings in abeyance. And this one's pretty icky. I don't know what's going on here, but they're agreeing with each other. And anytime this happens, it's not good. So both of them come together. They say the National Endowment for Democracy, which I would guess has nothing to do with actual democracy. I my estimation of it. It's a big entity. I don't know what it does exactly. The memo says this, saying there was $167 million in their treasury account consisting of the funds that the State Department had previously obligated to the endowment. Do you know how much money that is? But the endowment had not received any of those funds from that account despite making drawdown requests of $97 million in late January. Yeah, like what? Like January 19th or something? Well, when did that come in? The memo also identified approximately $72 million in additional funds that Congress had appropriated for the endowment, but that the State Department had not obligated to the endowment. Okay, so Trump will give it to them because Congress was specific about them, because Congress is disgusting. So they'll put in there in writing, the National Endowment for Democracy gangsters are going to get this amount of money. So they have to give it to him. Okay, that's why they're giving it to him, I would guess. Letter on March 6th came in. The court issued a minute order asking about this. Yesterday, on March 10th, gross. The endowment received $97 million that it requested in late January. What date? Why don't you tell us what date that was? Defendants, Trump and us, have also represented that the relevant officials at the State Department are also finalizing their request for another $72 million. Sick. So this is why we need Congress to rescind this stuff. It's already been appropriated by Congress, but not yet obligated by the State Department. Trump currently expends that this obligation should be complete around the end of this week. So a couple $100 million going out the door to some whatever they do. Anyone know? I don't know. In light of these changed never helped my life or done anything useful to America as far as I've ever seen. But in light of these changed circumstances, the parties jointly submit that it is appropriate to hold proceedings on temporary restraining order in abeyance. Okay, so we don't need to have this hearing. They got their money. They're happy. And we'll let you know what happens. Holding the motion in abeyance will allow them to determine whether they actually get their money. And they agree they want to hold it in abeyance too. So all these lawyers are happy over here because they're getting their clients their hundreds of millions of dollars, courtesy of the American taxpayer. All right, so that's going out. Now, let's go back to the AIDS case, because this was the other decision that came down. Judge Amir Ali, born in Ontario, Canada, presiding in the District of Columbia over this case, the AIDS vaccine case. Two cases really compiled together. The Global Health Council and the so-called AIDS doctors advocating for an AIDS vaccine, which may or may not exist. I don't know. And they are suing to get their money turned back on. Now, we've talked about this case a lot. And so we were waiting for this order to come down from the judge granting or rejecting the preliminary injunction. And this was the same judge, Judge Amir Ali, who ordered $2 billion to be paid out at midnight. Trump appealed it to the Court of Appeals in the District of Columbia. They rejected it. Then he took it to the Supreme Court. He had to go wake up John Roberts. He's like, wake up, John. John Roberts like, got up out of bed, issued the stay. Those $2 billion didn't go out. They sent in the aftermath, another order to the judge to clarify things, right? And give us a new update. So that's where we're at. That's the procedural history on this. And the judge has issued this opinion. Now, it is a big one. And I think a lot of this is because this judge also got backhanded by Judge Alito in the dissent, saying this judge is a moron, essentially. Didn't write that word down, but he basically did 2 times in that dissent. We read it here. Saying that this judge was usurping executive power and also issuing illogical mandates and illogical decisions that were conflicting with itself, because he's issued like several TROs. So the judge finally got his act together and issued this opinion. Now, I want to go quickly through it because it's a lot of a rehash. I flipped through it before. But he says, look, foreign aid has been a joint enterprise, and Congress and the executive branch work together. There's a constitutional partnership here. The executive branch here, in this case, has unilaterally deemed that funds will not be spent. And this is a fake, okay? That's not accurate. They will not be spent with these people. Okay, the fiscal year is new. Plenty of time left on the clock to spend the money. So that is just not accurate, okay? This judge is not being honest. The executive not only claims his constitutional authority about how to spend, but also takes Congress's ability to determine whether to spend. Judge is missing the whole point right from the very beginning. He canceled it was a pause, then you forced him to unpause it, so he canceled them. That money is still going to be spent. It's just not going to sub-Sahara transgender lobotomies. In advancing this position, defendants offer an unbridled view of executive power, a view that flouts multiple statutes and more. Okay, so this judge is going to go on a little bit of a screed here. And we're going to fast forward to the end. And when I see stuff like this, when I see this judge who is just so off, like he's missing, I think probably intentionally, the elephant in the room, it was a pause. Then they got terminated. They're going to spend the money. It's just not going to your friends. Then when he goes on and just explains all the rest of this, like all this background, it's to fill in the cope for himself. Because remember, he issued multiple TROs. The judge came out. He said, oh, yeah, you got to pay him all this money immediately. And then Trump said, well, you also wrote in that TRO that we could also make, like, as long as we're not relying on Trump's executive order, but we have another basis independent of Trump's order to do what we want to do, you said we can do it. So then we did it. They all got canceled and reviewed, and they didn't rely on any powers of the president because that was all stayed by the judge. So they just looked at the contracts between all of these entities and canceled them. Then the judge was like pissed. He's like, what? You can't do that. Well, like, yes, we can. You said we could. You wrote it in writing right there on your number one attempt at this. Then the judge came back out and said that you had to pay everything by basically midnight. Then they moved multiple times. Okay, so these AIDS doctors, and we mock them just like we mock the Catholic bishops. I'm Catholic. Okay, we mock all of these entities. They have the burden of proving their legitimacy to us. We don't get to just read their name, Catholic bishops or AIDS Vaccine Coalition or something like that, and presume their legitimacy because they picked a clever name. Just to be clear. So in the 2 weeks that followed, they sued. They said, we're going to die. And they wanted all of their money immediately. Within a few days, they filed more motions. Now, despite the court's order, this is the judge writing, that they were owed millions, they still weren't getting money. So then the judge held a hearing. And what happened is the judge said, you got to pay. The court ordered the defendants to unfreeze funds for work completed prior to the TRO, giving them 36 hours to come into compliance. Yeah, but this judge is such a dishonest person, in my opinion, that he left out that this order, all work completed prior to the TRO, it wasn't just for the AIDS doctors or the Global Health Council plaintiffs. There's a bunch of them suing, bundling up their claims together. But it was actually to everybody. Okay, anything that got canceled or terminated beyond even parties to this lawsuit were ordered. It was like $2 billion by many calculations. So the judge was way overbroad. Trump appealed. He moved to stay this. He said, we can't make all that money like by midnight tomorrow. Are you crazy? So then they came back. Remember, we read this. Trump said, well, we reviewed 13,000 contracts and we canceled them all. You said we can't pause them, so we canceled them. They're terminated. Then the court denied their appeal, pointing out that they didn't raise the right issues. Then the case went up to the Supreme Court. They filed an emergency application to SCOTUS, which issued an administrative stay. The court subsequently then, and we were furious with Amy Coney Barrett about this, as was much of MAGA. Now, to be clear, we are upset that the court didn't find, in other words, an exception to the TRO rule when it's a nationwide injunction that is subjugating the executive branch to the executive branch. In my opinion, the Supreme Court has a clear legal duty to step in and rectify that. And Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett don't agree, apparently. So that's why we're unhappy with Amy Coney Barrett, but we don't want to be so unhappy with her that she becomes a Judge Kagan. The court subsequently denied defendants' application and instructed this court to clarify, remember? And part of the silver lining was we were going to see this order from the judge, because the Supreme Court was basically giving him some more rope, saying, oh, you already ordered the president to do like all of this insane stuff. It sounds like, did you really mean that? Why don't you clarify it for us? Because if you did mean that, then we can say that that's very clearly unconstitutional. So upon remand from the Supreme Court, Judge Amir promptly ordered the parties to address the feasibility of making these payments. We had lengthy hearings on the injunctions and drawdowns, and we saw how many thousands of payments they were making each day. We talked about 100 payments were being made overnight, and they had a whole hearing on it. So the judge says, all right, well, let me just talk about this. Article 3 standing. Plaintiffs have standing, so they can be here. And he goes through all of the elements of the preliminary injunction. He says that these AIDS doctors, so-called, are going to win on the merits. I disagree. And he says, okay, they're going to win on their APA claim. Okay, so why do I disagree? Well, basically what we just read from the other judge. These are contract disputes. They want their money. And the APA specifically says that you can't file a claim against the government under the APA. So, because of sovereign immunity, unless they waived it. We saw that from the prior judge's opinion. So we fast forward through a lot of this. So this judge is going to go the opposite of them. Okay, they've got standing. Trump said that the Tucker Act prohibits them from hearing this case. He says, see, the DC Circuit has explicitly rejected that broad notion. So he's going in opposite of the prior judge that we just read through. And a lot here from this judge. So we'll fast forward through some of the more tedious parts. All of this is about standing. We know he's going to find that they have standing and they can sue. And now we're talking about the constitutionality of the statutes. Now, Congress has further asserted its spending power. For permanent impoundment or rescissions, Congress specified in the Impoundment Act that you can't do that, essentially, right? If you want to impound funds, you have to notify Congress, where the president seeks to temporarily impound or defer funds, which he's not actually doing right now, right? He's not formally deferring or impounding them. This was a pause, and now they've been canceled. Now, they don't object to the constitutionality of those statutes, and they don't say Congress was exceeding their authority. In fact, Trump has been saying things like close it down. Elon has been saying time for USAID to DIE, time for them to go. And they've not even disputed their intent. Like, they're very clear. They want to cut out USAID. But the judge says they haven't followed the proper rules here. So this is their lowest position of power. They do not contest that they are declining to spend appropriated funds based on policy objections, and they've been explicit in saying this. Again, they're not spending the funds with these people. Their principal argument has been that the president has vast and generally unreviewable powers, and this court can't substitute their judgment for the president's. But that argument fails. They say the Supreme Court has rejected it. And the president doesn't have unbounded power, and he finds a bunch of case law to support his claim there. But what we're most interested in here is what he's doing. Okay, he can talk his mouth off, and he does in this filing. But what is his final ruling going to be? Are all these people going to get $2 billion as he wanted and ordered? And the Supreme Court asked for clarity? Let's continue. He's going to grant part of this, saying crafting an injunction is very tricky, essentially. We have to balance a bunch of things and mold its decree to meet a particular case. As it did before, right? The judge, I'm going to whittle this down and try to thread the needle. As described above, the court finds that these AIDS doctors are likely to succeed on their APA claims, even though another judge, Trevor McFadden, just said, no, you don't. You don't win on contract disputes utilizing the ADA. The court accordingly finds it is proper to preliminarily enjoin those directives, the ones that were a blanket suspension of congressionally appropriated aid. Let me back up here. Yeah. As directed, they say, we think that they're going to win on the APA claim, but they are not likely to succeed as to the review and large-scale terminations that occurred, that took place after February 13th. So in other words, those cancellations of those contracts are valid. Sorry, this judge goofed, right? If they were just paused, maybe they would have turned them back on. But because he ordered all of this stuff to happen, they canceled everything immediately, right? By forcing it. And he knows they're not going to win on that. The court accordingly finds it proper to preliminarily enjoin the parts of those directives and the actions taken pursuant to them to implement the freeze between January 20th and February 13th. Okay, now he's narrowing it down. I can only touch these things. So the contract cancellations are valid. However, the court denies the AIDS doctor's request to enjoin or invalidate the subsequent review process or the mass terminations that resulted from it. Incredible. So huge portions of those were canceled, right? And the court kind of forced them into that. And the court set them up for that, saying you could just look to the contracts, essentially. The court also finds that the AIDS doctors are likely to succeed on their constitutional claims that the withholding of congressional money violates the separation of powers, right? Well, they are violating the rules, but what? But what am I going to do about it, Judge? Again, the relief must be properly tailored. He's now on page 45 after this, all this, ranting. So, okay, you said all of that crap, but you can't really do anything. So the court concludes that the AIDS doctor's relief is overbroad. Oh, that's what we said from the very beginning. And that's part of what you ordered, Judge. In two additional respects, as to their APA and their constitutional claims. First, the doctors propose relief that goes beyond implementing directives that they challenged in their APA claims. They want to specifically enjoin, okay, again, that's fancy craft. They want them to execute on the contract, but they phrase it as stopping them from canceling the contracts, right? They're different. From terminating, furloughing, or ordering them, basically return to the status quo as it existed on January 20th, including by restoring technical systems and give them access to their money portal, like little piggies at a fat trough. The court finds that dictating operational decisions would go beyond the proper relief. Oh, you already did that, Judge. You already ordered the State Department to issue operational decisions in the form of paying $2 billion out immediately by midnight. You already did it. This judge is pathetic. While the court, it's like, bro, don't you understand what you just wrote? You just wrote this like a month ago. The court finds that dictating operational decisions would go beyond the proper relief. Dude, you did it like 4 times. While the court has expressed concern about the length of time before Trump took action to comply with the TRO, they have since represented that they will adjust staffing levels to as needed to comply with the court's order, and they have taken at least some steps to do so. Okay. Now, second and relatedly, so this judge is like, totally wimping out. The court cannot adopt the AIDS doctor's proposal, again, like losing every time, that defendants achieve payment processing rates like there was before January 20th. Like, we want our money immediately. Like, I can't do that. In denying their application to vacate this court's order, enforcing its TRO, in fact, the Supreme Court emphasized the need for due regard to the feasibility of any compliance deadlines and timelines. Now, while that direction was given in the context of the TRO, it's going to apply here in the preliminary injunction stage. This court has since invited both written and oral submissions on feasibility. And during its hearing concerning feasibility, the court sought the parties' views on creating clear and feasible benchmarks as it relates specifically to the remaining funds to be dispersed. We want to know how much that is. Given the parties frequently articulated their respective arguments in terms of the number of payments processed, the court proposed a metric. So they're talking like 500 payments on one day, 2,000 payments over here, blah, blah, blah. The court says, all right, listen, how many do you think you can do? The parties agree that at the time of the appeal, there were roughly 2,000 outstanding payments to be processed by USAID, along with additional payments to be processed by State Department. They also agree that USAID and state could previously process thousands of payments a day. As a benchmark of the current date, they have submitted that after the Supreme Court lifted its stay, they were able to create the capacity to process about 100 payments over one night. So in light of these benchmarks, the court found it feasible for the defendants to process 1,200 payments to the AIDS doctors over 4 days, or roughly 300 payments per day. Although the court, and again, this is going to be a very narrow set of payments, right? Because they're only cordoned off from the January 20th date to the February 13th date and anything prior to that. Although the court has invited submissions, there has not been any specific objection to this rate. So the court finds it's appropriate and feasible to process payments of a rate at 300 per day. Now, although this is a small fraction of the rate as before, it nonetheless allows the defendants to come into compliance with a short period of time. And if there's a problem, we can revisit this. But as to their claim about a separation of powers problem, the proposed relief is overbroad insofar as it would specifically order them to continue the contract. Yeah, that's the point. As discussed, the violation here results from the executive's decision to unlawfully impound funds appropriated by Congress for specific foreign aid purposes. That, again, is not happening. Like, that money it will be repurposed into other money, into other areas. Believe that. To be sure, plaintiffs observe that they occupy a large share of the sector. They're like, well, there is nowhere else this money to go because we are it. They occupy a large share. Nobody else can get this money because we're the only people that exist here, as demonstrated by the severe harm. And it may well be that the only most practical way for the Trump administration to carry out their duty to spend the funds is to revive existing partnerships, right? It's like, we have to spend this money. Where's it going to go? Now's a good time to start an AIDS vaccine coalition. In fact, we're going to do it. This show is now the Watching the Watchers Catholic AIDS Bishops show. Oh, I just got a call. $5 billion. Amazing. What a great chat. All right. So, however, the separation of powers dictates that the only executive follow Congress's decisions to spend the money, and that there should be some constraints set by Congress, but the appropriate remedy is to order Trump to make available for obligation the full amount of funds Congress appropriated under the relevant laws. Okay, so he's such a weenie. This judge is so pathetic. The Supreme Court told you to be specific, loser, not just give us a generic, well, just follow the law. Come on. So for the reasons above, the court grants in part and denies in part the AIDS doctors. Consistent with this opinion, it is hereby ordered that Rubio and the rest of them are enjoined from giving effect to, once again, we saw this in the original TRO, the Trump memo and other directives to issue terminations or suspensions or whatever. Accordingly, the defendants shall not withhold payments or letter of credit drawdowns, there it is, right, for work completed prior to February 13th. Now, the restrained defendants are enjoined from unlawfully impounding congressionally appropriated funds and shall make available for obligation the full amount of the funds that Congress appropriated for Foreign Assistance Program in the Further Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2024. It's like ridiculous. What do you mean? They are. They are going to be spending that money. This judge is pathetic. I hope Trump appeals this and gets clarity from the higher courts and challenges this. We'll see. It is further ordered that Trump shall take all necessary steps to effectuate this order, especially written notice to all recipients of contracts and cooperative agreements for foreign assistance that were already in existence between January 20th and February 13th. The party shall file and I guess this would be everybody beyond these entities in this lawsuit, right? So it's like everybody. So it's a big chunk of money, but the cancellations are effective, right? So they just basically bought themselves like 3 weeks of money, right? Like however many days that is between January 20th and February 13th. They got some additional money, but those cancellations are now effective. So the party shall file a joint status report by the middle of this month. The court is prepared to hold a prompt hearing to address any feasibility concerns. And it is hereby, the TRO is hereby dissolved. Okay. So the Trump administration, long story short, they got to pay some money out, but not nearly as much as it was before. And this judge is walking it back, I think, pretty massively, right? Saying just pay them for those 3 weeks. Otherwise, the cancellations are in effect, and I'm not ordering a return to the status quo at all. So ultimately, I think a big victory for the Trump administration, although I'm still irritated with this judge for saying that they're unlawfully impounding anything. It takes some time to repurpose those funds. By the end of the fiscal year, there'll be a whole new set of agencies who are getting that government money, no doubt about it. So Judge Amir Ali walks that one back, and another good decision from the DC Circuit Court. But this only came about after the Supreme Court and Judge Alito gave Judge Amir Ali from Ontario the old backhand. So we'll keep our eye on this one. We'll see if Trump appeals it back up to the Court of Appeals and then to the Supreme Court. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, and we got some more updates coming out on these banned lawyers that we'll now talk about, because this one is a lot of fun as well. Let's start over here today, shall we? And make sure we get this puppy ready for the red pen. Perkins Coie, that law firm that was led, or at least hired this guy, where'd this go? Mark Elias, is now freaking out. So let's start that one over again. Mark Elias and Democrat lawyers are freaking out. They've been banned from the Trump administration from interfacing with the government in various ways, and they are now suing. They dropped this lawsuit in the District of Columbia. You can see Mark Elias's former law firm called Perkins Coie sued the Justice Department after Trump issued an executive order throwing them out of the federal government. They're very unhappy about it. Mark Elias is saying he's reading books now, and he's freaked out about Nazis and Putin. We'll listen to that. But they are suing. Trump said, your security clearances are gone. You don't get access to any government resources because you're corrupt, essentially, is what Trump was saying or intimating, because Perkins Coie had Mark Elias and Michael Sussman working with them back in 2016 to try to set up Trump with a fake Russia collusion hoax. Michael Sussman was on trial for that. He was acquitted out of D.C. A juror was reportedly saying, we got bigger things to worry about than some Democrat operative who went after Trump. They all hate Trump anyways. But Sussman, as we heard from testimony in the trial, was colluding with the FBI, was colluding with the national media to try to set Trump up. So now these law firms are getting the wrath. If they want to play with fire, well, they have to be cautious about getting burned. So they're suing everybody, including Bondi, Russ Vought. You can see Tulsi Gabbard's being sued, everybody. What this case is about, they write, and we'll go through this just to see what their arguments are, and it's actually kind of funny to watch them squirm, says this case concerns Trump's executive order. And this is an affront to the Constitution and our adversarial system of justice. Why? Because what Trump is doing is bullying those who advocates points of view that the president perceives as adverse to the views of his administration. Perkins Coie brings this case reluctantly. The firm is comprised of lawyers who advocate for clients. They put that in italics in case the judge is stupid. Its attorneys and employees, here you go, are not activists or partisans. Yeah, but Mark Elias was working there, right? Perkins Coie's ability to represent the interest of its clients and its ability to operate as a business are all under direct and imminent threat. Says Perkins Coie cannot allow its clients to be bullied. The firm is committed to a resolute defense rule of law and brings this lawsuit to try to stop Trump. They say, look, Trump's order is betraying its oddity as an executive order. For its purpose, it's not executive in nature at all. They're basically saying it's judicial, right? They're saying that we got terminated, saying all of our government contracts are now terminated. That's going to drive away current and prospective clients. Yeah, well, would you prefer that his DOJ indict you guys like your DOJ did to Trump? Should he just round up everybody? Or should people on the right form groups like the 65 Project and just try to revoke every lawyer's license who had a different perspective? Denying, maybe that would be better. But now you just don't get to interface with the people that you helped try to put away. Denying all members and all employees of the firm access to federal buildings and meetings or other government engagement with federal employees. Like, that is devastating to them. Immediately suspending and possibly even revoking security clearances for all firm employees. Gone. The order from Trump imposes these punishments on the entire law firm, all right? Even though the attorneys involved in the purported misconduct numbered a mere handful of the more than 1,200 attorneys in the firm. Wow. Yeah, almost like when they castigated an entire political party and said that everybody who was there on January 6th was a violent insurrectionist and more, and that there were no peaceful protesters and everything was trying to take over the country and blah, 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 right? It's always one set of rules for one side and another for the other. Now, the order imposes these punishments ex post facto, saying the president already adjudicated these matters. He's like judge, jury, and executioner. He says that Perkins Coie engaged in a dishonest and dangerous activity, saying that they manufactured evidence of the Clinton 2016 presidential campaign, that they engaged in the order in an egregious activity by challenging and defending election laws, right? And in 2020, they did a lot of that too. Racially discriminated against its employees and applicants. They didn't give notice to Perkins, and they didn't give Perkins an opportunity to be heard. These are false and disparaging claims made by Trump. So they write, this order imposes these punishments as retaliation for the firm's association with the president's political opponents. Many law firms represented candidates and others in 2016 and 2020, but the order only targets one firm, Perkins, because the president views it more than any other firm as aligned with the Democratic Party, because it is. Because of its representation with the 2016 presidential campaign, I think one of their partners represents Bill, and another one of their partners represents, if I read this right, Mike Pence against Trump. And its successful handling of challenges brought by Trump, as well as victories the firm won for its clients in a significant number of voting rights cases, which means election rigging cases, in my opinion, including when Perkins succeeded in upholding existing laws back in 2020. But there, you guys did a lot more than that, right? You helped to file to get the laws changed, usurping the power of the legislative branch, getting the courts to act under declarations of emergency to waive signature requirements, to postpone ballot collection deadlines, to expand drop boxes, to make all sorts of substantive infrastructural changes to the election. They did that. During the campaign, the president promised to retaliate against his opponents. It's not retaliation when you acted corruptly, including attorneys who represented them. So when I win, they're in trouble. Guess what? They are. This aim of this order is intentionally obvious to the general public. The goal is to chill future lawyers from representing particular clients. That's not the goal. The goal is to punish the law firm that was thrilled to do this type of work and was endorsing it. The AP wrote that the actions appear designed to settle scores. Nobody cares what they think, their state media. The principal claims made by the order have already been raised in the proper forum. Regarding the claim that the firm engaged in misconduct when it represented Clinton, the president filed a federal lawsuit against Perkins. The lawsuit asserted RICO claims about the campaign and other places. The court dismissed the lawsuit. Regarding the assertion that the firm pushed false claims about ties, a special counsel appointed by this indicted Michael Sussman. That was John Durham, who was really pathetic, honestly. That whole thing was a joke. A former partner of the firm, in connection with evidence he brought to the attention of the FBI, and Sussman was tried in D.C. The jury quickly and unanimously acquitted him. We covered the whole trial. Now, Sussman is at a different firm. It was pathetic. John Durham let us all down. And regarding the claim that former members of the firm were not candid with the court concerned the Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit sanctioned 3 lawyers and already caused them to pay legal fees. Though none of those people work for Perkins today. So anybody who is bad has already been fired. But now they're punishing us because of DEI. We have a long-standing commitment to DEI. We have very smart DEI people here. It's not unlawful. And so that's just a pretext. Now, because Trump's order adjudicates and punishes, so they're trying to make this like a due process claim, alleged misconduct, it's an unconstitutional violation of separation of powers. He indicted us, he prosecuted us, he convicted us. He is the executive branch, so he can take action, but he has to do that through the lawful process. Because it does so without notice and an opportunity to be heard, because it punishes the entire firm, because the handful of lawyers are not even employees at the firm anymore, it's an unconstitutional violation of procedural due process and substantive due process to practice one's professional livelihood. And because the order singles out Perkins Coie, it denies the firm equal protection of the laws under the Constitution. And again, this is exactly what Judge Trevor McFadden was saying. This is a contract kind of dispute, right? You don't get access to our contracts with our government. Your employees don't get access to our buildings. You don't get security clearances like by default. They're all canceled. So they're wrapping this up in constitutional garbage. Go file your claim in the Court of Claims. But they're laying it on thick here too, by the way. Because the order singles out Perkins Coie, it denies the firm Fifth Amendment protections. Everything's constitutional. It's a contract. Your contract's canceled. That's all. Don't make it much more than it is. Because the order punishes the firm for the clients with which it has been associated and the legal positions it has taken on matters of law, it's retaliatory viewpoint discrimination. Wow. First Amendment claims too. Wow. Fourth, Fifth, everything. Just wrapping it all in there. Yeah. All right. Is that why they get paid like $1,500 an hour? Because the order compels disclosure of the confidential information, it violates the First Amendment too. And the order retaliates against Perkins Coie for its diversity. It violates the First Amendment. You can't do that. Saying that now the order works to brand Perkins Coie as persona non grata, bar it from federal buildings, deny it the ability to communicate with federal employees, and terminate the government contracts of its clients. Sorry, the order violates the right to counsel afforded by the Constitution. So it's 43 pages of that kind of crap. It's all a contractual dispute, and Trump has every right to cancel it. Even another judge out of the District of Columbia agrees, Trevor McFadden. So they're saying this is an unconstitutional violation of constitutional rights. And you might see, like, to play on their side for a second, you might see a court come out. Well, first, I could see a DC court coming out and saying, absolutely right. Turn all this back on. Just send this to Judge Amir Ali. He'll be like, yeah, give them all their money and hire all their lawyers. But in truth, right, if they're actually like in the middle of a case, I can see a judge saying, all right, well, that guy's like in the middle of representing this client. That client's case is like 3 weeks out from trial. So we need to keep that lawyer's access, but no more access beyond that, right? Like once that case is done, you're done. Because you don't want to interfere with the due process rights, not of this law firm to have their contract, but of that client who is in the process of being prosecuted in trials like in 2 weeks. The judge is like, I'm not going to let you go get another lawyer right now. This lawyer already avowed he's ready for trial. He's already using these tools. So we'll let that stand. But anything else is now cut off and you're done. I think you could see kind of an agreement around that. But saying we're being denied our rights, like we're the party being harmed because they canceled our contract. Don't talk about contracts at all. Instead, talk about the Constitution. And we'll see where this case gets assigned. This was submitted today. So it was the complaint. We'll see where this lands up, who gets the case, and what they do on it. But they are reeling. They're in pain. These giant law firms, they get tens or hundreds of millions of dollars off of government contracts. And now those are going to be in jeopardy moving forward. And their reputation is going to be just devastated. For 4 years, they can't interface with the government. And you need a lawyer to interface with the government. Huge. So Mark Elias was melting down over this. You can see I was looking for some of his videos. He posted this one saying, I'm doing a lot of reading. We played this morning on the Membos Only stream. And this was from a clip, I think, of Nicole Wallace. Yesterday on their show, they had Andrew Weissman and a couple other people, all of them just freaked out. And I think before this clip, he was like screaming at other law firms, like, get up and get out there and support everybody because we're losing everything. And here he is talking about how bad Trump is. And you can predict what two other ideologies or political groups he compares Trump to. You can play this game in your head, see if you can guess the two.
A lot of reading in the last few weeks and months. You know who instituted a system of justice like this? The Nazis. I mean, Hans Frank, who was the Nazis' head lawyer, changed essentially the German legal code and said that no longer were lawyers to advocate for their clients, they were to advocate for the state. And that if they advocated for their clients adverse to the state, they themselves were committing a crime. And that transformed the legal establishment to pave the way years later for what became the Holocaust. You know who else has a legal system like this? Russia.
Putin.
Right? In Russia today, if you are a lawyer and you defend clients that are considered to be enemies of Vladimir Putin and you make arguments that displeases the regime, you yourself face liability. And so, look, the American legal system is far away from Nazi Germany and is far away from Russia's Putin.
Yeah, because we got control of it again. Okay, you maniacs were creating evidence about a fake Russia collusion operation between the Trump campaign and the Russians, all made up. And you had Jake Sullivan, Hillary Clinton's national security advisor, or supposed to be because she lost, Matt had him come out and post about it. Shocking connections between Trump and the Kremlin. And then this guy showed up at Michael Sussman's trial. He's not a stupid person, technically. There's many different layers to that comment, but he can remember things. Let me say that. He can remember things. He showed up in Michael Sussman's trial. I don't recall. Oh, I don't recall. Don't recall. Did you have talks with him about this? Did you know this was fake? Did you know this was all made up? Did you know that this came from these other goons called Michael Steele and others who were just pulling this out of their booties? I don't recall. I don't really recall. Yeah. The reason they're freaked out is because they know what they've done. And what they've done is tried to turn our justice system exactly into Stalin's, exactly into Putin's, exactly into Zelensky's, exactly into Nazi Germany's, where they prosecute their political opponents. They did it 4 times against Trump. They tried to literally throw Trump off the ballot. His work, we covered multiple cases from his law firm in 2020 that were changing the rules across the country to better reflect the Democratic ideology. So this guy will sit here and say he's reading books about Nazis and Stalin, when in fact his political party and his works have tried to repurpose the American judicial system into one of those systems, and he's been relentless in doing so. So that's Mark Elias and others. Now, we've got this situation that happened in Congress today, and this was a spicy one. An explosive day in Congress. Pronouns, introductions, flying all over the place. Nobody knows what the heck is going on, and the hearing went off the rails. Here is what happened. Now, as you can see from this panel, if we go left to right, we can identify also a puppy up here. So what we can presume certain genders, right? We could say this is a male with a pup, male, 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 female. Representative McBride is on the end. Now, here's what happened today during introductions.
I now recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member Keating, also wonderful.
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat your introduction again, please?
Yes, we have set the standard on the floor of the House, and I'm simply...
What is that standard, Mr. Chairman? Would you repeat what you just said when you introduced a duly elected representative from the United States of America? Please.
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency?
Sir?
I mean, I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this
You
hearing.
will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
This hearing is adjourned.
All right, it's over. We're out. Thanks for coming today. All right, and did you hear McBride call him madam? You heard that, right? So Mr. McBride is the name that's being called, and Representative McBride just misgenders him. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair, is what Representative McBride said. You can hear that right at the beginning.
I recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Right? Okay, that's settled. All right, that's settled. They can both insult each other. This guy comes into White Knight for some reason, and the whole thing just goes totally nuts. So you can see things are getting rocky out there in Congress. Now, we have more because Alina Abba was also making her way, we know what her pronouns are, making her way around Biden's old White House. You remember this little gimmick that they had going, this scam? Where they would bring Joe Biden out of the Oval Office and they'd shove him in this little weird studio. And I've heard multiple theses for this, that the studio was really built because it could make him look better, right? They could adjust the lighting, they could adjust the makeup, they could adjust the sound. It was a little bit more of a closed environment. There's like no windows, right? Windows are difficult for lighting. I'm constantly kind of fighting it. But it was a more controlled environment. But I have another thesis too. I think the idea is that freed up the Oval Office, right? They can actually do business without Joe Biden there. Having people come in and out and just shove him in some other room with Hunter doing lines of crack on the Resolute desk.
You guys, I just finished a show. Look at the room that they put me in. We're in Biden's fake Oval Office, everybody. And I've actually figured this out. I now know why. I now get it. Turn the camera around. There is a screen, teleprompter to the face. All I can say is the last administration was a disgrace.
Totally disgrace. Total disgrace there. Thank you, Alina Abba, for giving us the nice tour. So you can see it's an interesting little tour, right? It's pretty decked out. They got lights all over the place, right? See all those lights, a really nice control room, production room, and they can just drag Joe Biden out and just shove something right in his face. Here, Joe, just read this stupid script. And then throw him back. You remember Joe Biden? I mean, first of all, he's gone. Like nobody's ever seen him again. Kamala at least is showing up in grocery stores because she thinks she can be governor or maybe president again. But Joe's just been gone, right? And he was in office not long ago. So thank you, Alina, for explaining what that looks like. Oh man, you see that head bob from Alyssa Slotkin? Wow, didn't even catch that the first time around. But she was on with The View, and she was, I think, calling everybody angry, petulant teenagers and saying that our brains are not fully formed. Nicholas Fondacaro clipped this one for us.
Feeling in the country. Yeah. I mean, I often say this, we're about to turn 250 years old, right? We're still pretty young for a country. These are our like our angry teenage years, right? We are going through this push and pull where we're happy, we're sad, we want this, we want that. And what do you do when you have a teenager who's threatening themselves and others? You just try to get them through this period alive so that their brain can fully form and you can come back to kind of what
Are
a
you
country.
talking about Trump?
No, I'm talking about our country. We're pendulum swinging. We're pendulum swinging.
All right, so they're still trying to figure it out. That former CIA agent, probably current CIA agent, is trying to explain to the ladies on The View what's going to be happening. But we also have more afoot. The Department of Education might be next. You can see CBS News was reporting that they were told that offices will be closed on Wednesday. That's tomorrow. Here's why. Staff at the DOE received a notice on Tuesday instructing them to leave the building by 6 p.m. local time and take your things, saying all department offices as well as regional offices will be closed on Wednesday, according to an email they got. The email came from this guy called James Harefield of the Office of Security, said that the offices will be closed for security reasons. Staff with approved telework agreements were told they can work from home. Bring your laptops home with you. They said employees will not be permitted to return in any education facility on Wednesday, March 12th, for any reason at all. Offices will reopen on Thursday, at which time in-person presence will resume. The directive comes after a lot of uncertainty. The president is expected to issue an executive order with Linda McMahon to begin the process of dissolving the department. The timing of the move, however, remains unclear. Mr. Trump has said he wants to bring the schools back to the states. Dismantling the agency has been a top priority for decades. After McMahon took her post, she sent a letter saying, we're going to be making some pretty big changes. Our job is to respect the will of the American people and eliminate bureaucratic bloat. So we'll see what ultimately happens. There was another report from this woman called Shelby Talcott. She is a White House correspondent for Semaphore, and she's saying this. Says, here's a scoop. Per a person familiar, reduction in force notices for the education department expected to go out today at 6 p.m. See if that happens later tonight or if it's already gone out. Nearly half the department is expected to be eliminated. Be a good start. So says, obviously this comes as they're being closed today. Offices will be closed tomorrow. And that will be good. Maybe we'll have some good education in this country once the federal government gets out of it. Now, what we've seen here with Elon is that the liberals, who are obviously very peaceful people and just respect democracy, they're doing this type of stuff to Teslas out on the streets. Andy NGO posted this, said multiple Tesla vehicles were destroyed in Seattle in a suspected arson. Multiple fire bombings and shootings of Tesla stores this last month. These are far left folks urging these attacks because Democrats won't care at all. Yeah, so a little fiery, but mostly peaceful. Yeah, pretty nice. Okay. And, obviously not caring about global warming. I'm sure that's not very good for the planet to torch giant lithium batteries all over the place. Not ideal, but those are Democrats. What can you do? Now, meanwhile, Elon showed up at the White House today and brought some Teslas to visit with President Trump. And here was one exchange of Trump trying out the vehicle, baby, getting inside. Margot Martin, White House press person, shared this video of Trump hanging with Elon today.
I mean, if you actually drove it around, it would really be well.
That's beautiful. This is a different panel than I've had. Everything's computer. That's beautiful.
All right, the president and Elon hanging out. And here was Trump talking about the cuts, the tariffs, the changes happening around the country, saying the country needs it and we're going to be more successful in the aftermath. So if you're worried about the stocks going down, if you're worried about your crypto, this is temporary pain for long-term gain, and we're going to be entering a more foundational golden era in the soon aftermath.
What is your message, President Trump? Buying a new car, while there are some folks who will see this clip at home and they are struggling with their retirement accounts down at the moment, uncertainty about work ahead.
Well, I think they're going to do great. I think our country had to do this. We had to go and do this. They've taken away, other countries have taken away our business. They've taken away our jobs. I did it initially very strongly against, as you know, China and some others in the first term. And it was a very successful term. We had no inflation. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And then we had COVID, which we had to straighten out. So I didn't want to be doing anything with respect to other countries at that time. And we did a great job with it. We handed the stock market over. It was higher than it ever was. And think of that, higher than it ever was to that point before. And nobody thought that was even possible. We did a great job. But we had the greatest economy in history. This economy, in my opinion, is going to blow it away. But what I have to do is I have to get the workers back. I have to get the factories open. We have 90,000 factories and plants are closed from what you had just prior to NAFTA, which is not very long ago. 90,000, think of it, 90,000 factories and plants are closed from what it was. And it's just not right. So, and we gave it away. Presidents before me gave it away, and I could name every one of them. But they gave it away, and we're taking it back. We're taking our jobs back.
So people are a little bit spooked right now. Lots of changes are happening, but when America has a more foundational economy, when we're not just printing money and then having rich liberals just stash it in the stock market because they don't know what else to do with their $2 billion climate fund money or whatever, we'll have a real country again, and we're looking forward to it. And Elon's looking good, man. He's looking solid, got all dabbed out in black MAGA, black coat, black Cybertruck, and Lil X with him in tow. So they're meeting, and of course, we're excited about the work that is coming out of their brains, and we'll be here to continue to cover it. Thank you for joining. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for inviting a friend or family member to come over here and join us, and we'll see you back here on the next one. All right, now, my friends, if you're just joining us, a quick recap on what we talked about. We had some NGO updates. The Catholic bishops got obliterated along with a bunch of others who were suing to get their money back. This judge is amazing, Trevor McFadden, out of the District of Columbia said, these are contract disputes, and you should take those to the Court of Federal Claims where they hear contract disputes. And this is great because I think it will create more of a split in the District of Columbia. Court of Appeals will have to rectify it. And hopefully we put a lot of these lawsuits to bed. Shout out to Trevor McFadden today. You're the real MVP today. We also saw the Department of Education is closed starting tomorrow, and it might be cut in half at the end of the day. We also heard from Elon and saw that there were some very upset lawyers like this guy, Mark Elias, who is very concerned that his prior law firm, Perkins Coie, has lost its federal contracts, lost its federal access to buildings, and lost its security clearances, urging a bunch of other lawyers and law firms to get out there and support their work. They're suing the Trump administration, everybody, Tulsi Gabbard, Pam Bondi, and the rest of them, saying that this is a constitutional violation. And what we learned from Judge McFadden is that what they're doing is really just dressing up contract disputes under a constitutional guise. We'll see who gets the case and whether they buy it or not. Then we heard about this congressional battle and pronouns flying all over the place. It was so bad, they had to end the committee. And of course, my friends, now it is time to hear from you and to see what you say about all of this. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for liking this video. If you stick around, if you're on your way out, thanks for doing that. Thanks for, as I mentioned, inviting a friend or family member to come over and join us. It's much more fun when we're all doing it together. You know what I mean? The live stream. All right, what's going on? Let's see who's here on the day. We've got some great comments in the house. Look at this dog. Yeah, it's taco night, baby. It's Taco Tuesday. Man, that dog is getting down on those tacos. He looks so happy. And I don't blame him. Who can blame him? Thank you, Donut, for that one. All right, John Bauernfiend. What's up, John? Thanks for becoming a member. We'll see you tomorrow on the members only stream. We had a great members only stream this morning. If you're looking for some additional content, grab that. Join as a member. Join on YouTube. Join at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We'd love to see you. We'll see you tomorrow. Back to our regular time. Tomorrow, 12 noon for the morning stream. I know it's weirder when it's this time, but it's still morning for me. Knox. Hey, happy Taco Tuesday, all. I'm so behind on all this fun stuff. Dang, work always keeps getting in the way, LOL. Today was a good one. Yeah, today was fun. That Trevor McFadden one was definitely a good one. Yeah, AIDS Vax Docs needs to catch up. There's no Vax Bros, just yearly injections. Yeah, that's what I thought. Like they're therapeutics, right? I was like, there's an AIDS vaccine? I didn't think so. But they apparently are advocating for one. And there's a coalition of them that are doing it. So they need a couple $2 billion. Hey, what's up? Thank you, Knox, for that. Hope work is amazing. This old guy says, well, it looks like it's going to be slow, but we're chipping away at those Democrats. You're right about that, this old guy. Yeah, and it's good to see the dominoes start to fall in our favor. Great to see you, this old guy. We got a new baby in the house. Good Sign is here. What's up, Good Sign? Thanks for being a member for 9 months. Congratulations, Watcher fam. We got a new full baby joining us. Great to see you, Good Sign. Thanks for supporting us and thanks for saying hello. Tag, what's up, Tag? 2 months as a member, still in the first trimester. Yeah, first trimester is good. I think, you're hungry and whatever. I don't know how it works, but we appreciate it. Thank you, Tag, for being here and for being a member for 2 months. First month's the hardest, gets easier from there. Second month, we start to get used to each other. It's good. This old guy. Okay, well, it looks like it's going to be slow, but we're chipping away at the Democrats. Love it. Renee Sargent says, we're still hearing and watching every show and smoking briskets. That's good. I love briskets over there, man. Briskets are great. Renee Sargent, smoking bowls of briskets. Amazing. However, sometimes it's a replay. Good to see you, Renee Sargent. Crack me up, man. And Renee Sargent is on YouTube if you haven't checked out his channel. Does good stuff. Good to see you, Renee. Hey, Andy Hansis. What's up, Andy? Thanks for supporting us. Thanks for becoming a member. We'll see you on the morning stream tomorrow. Yeah, Sheila Poo says, I am Catholic and I don't appreciate these NGOs using my church to grift our tax dollars. It's awful. I know. It's kind of shocking, actually. It's like, wait a minute. Like when I go to Catholic church and like the Jesuits for sure are very liberal, but it's like, is that part of my Catholicism is to have my country invaded? Is that in the scripture somewhere? Because I missed that sermon at Mass. I haven't seen that one. Where is that? That the Catholics should be having our country invaded to the tune of $100 million that they're getting to facilitate that. What the hell is that? Hey, Knox. Oh, okay. I was asking about Jews and Muslims. Are they in on the grift too? The Jews were involved in this NGO. Mayorkas was on the board. HIAS welcomes 5 new members to the national board. Yeah, welcome the stranger, protect the refugee. There you go. Yeah, it's a giant grift. And, I singled out the Catholics today because I'm a Catholic and it's easy to, kind of criticize your own side. But I think it's much broader than that, right? It's much broader than just any particular religion. It's like if you're a human and you get free money from the government and you can utilize religion to do it, it's just another scam. It's like AIDS vaccines, global health, global democracy. It's all nonsense. Catholic refugees. It's made up. They just come up with names that nobody can challenge because they're like, wow, you don't want to get rid of the refugees, do you? What kind of a person are you? An American. That's who I am. Sergeant Fury, what's up? Good to see you. Thank you for becoming a supporter. And Beereen Jane. What's up, Beereen? Good to see you. Says, thanks for the legal talk without the lawyer speak. MAGA, back to you, Beereen. Thank you for that. Thanks for watching on Rumble and for being a membo over there. It's amazing. Yeah, we try to liven it up a little bit here. Thank you for that, Beereen. What's up, Suzanne Fubert? What's up, Suzanne? Thank you for becoming a membo. Nice kitty there in the photo. Steph D, great to see you, Steph D. 12 months as a membo. Happy anniversary to all of us. Steph D, thanks for supporting us for 12 full months. Been one heck of a year. Thanks with all my heart. Thank you, Steph D. I really appreciate that. It means a lot, man. It's awesome. 1 year. We've been through some stuff together. Like, it's been wild. It's been a year. Rick D says, this is the acting director of the USAID who ordered the shredding and the burning of the documents today. Erica Carr. Yeah, she looks like she would shred documents, doesn't she? She does. Rick D, what's up? Thank you for that. Says, from Nick Sorter, the Maui, on X, Nick Sorter posted this. Says, Maui Police Chief John Peltier, who gave the order to trap the victims, has now been named as a co-conspirator in the Diddy case. Whoa. That's crazy. Wow. Hey, what's up? Knox, the National Endowment for Democracy is the Republican USAID. Okay, great. So it's Republicans. Maybe that's why they turn the money back on. Should still be canceled. But I think the distinction on that one is that it's probably specifically appropriated. I was trying to figure out why they turned that money back on. So it's Republicans? I don't want them getting that crap either. Hey, what's up, Brian Bishop? Brian Bishop says, Bishop's backing off? No thanks. Watch this. What does that mean, Brian? Like, are you flying in a couple thousand illegals or something? We're not backing off. We're bringing in more illegals than ever. Thank you, Brian. And I know that they were technically refugees, but remember they categorized everybody as a refugee. And claiming asylum. They're a refugee. Okay. Glocky, I could swear that there are federal laws that make this illegal. And if it is, this senior official clearly saying to break the law to cover up crime sure would be nice to see the U.S. Marshals or FBI seize the building and all documents to investigate credible threats of a federal crime. USAID official tells remaining staffers, shred and burn all your documents. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I don't know who gave that order, but if it was an unlawful order, there are all sorts of document destruction rules, right? You can't just start shredding stuff. Like they got to go to the National Archives, all part of the record for FOIA and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, maybe she will get indicted. Hey, what's up, Glocky? Says Rep. Al Green's seat is being challenged by a sister of the late Army Special Vanessa Guillen, who was killed at Fort Hood in 2020. Myra Guillen says she decided to run after watching Green disrespect President Trump, their country, and their district. Yeah, amazing. Thank you for that, Glocky. Hey, what's up? NY says, so I believe this judge gave himself enough slack for a noose. Right, more rope. He treated the plaintiffs like a class action. However, he didn't follow the law. In a federal class action, it will be overturned. It will be overturned. I think so too. I think, like I said, I think the payments for those 3 weeks, the Rubio and the administration might just, okay, fine, here. But maybe not. What's up, Brian Bishop? Oh my goodness, Brian Bishop. Thank you for bringing in all these new membos. Look at these 50 new membos coming in. Let's bring them in, my friends. Welcome, courtesy of Brian Bishop. We got Short Bus Gang, Buddha Bear, EVN, Dirt in My Eye, Chase Junkie, Can Michael, Raid Shadow Legends. We got Mike Sheridan. What's up? I'll be damned in the house. We got Olivia Ravos, Crawfish in the house. Dr. Voodoo, Critical Thinking, Try It, joined us. The Void of Fun, what's up, Glenn F? We got Solemn Peace, Moneymaker, what's up, James Cromwell? We got Derek, Allen, Sissel DeLusa, Nancy Jennings coming in. We got Tomasa, Sputnik, Willa, Stalker, Brian, Blue Moo. We got Dustin Blue, Melanie, William Justice, Catherine Harvey, Jay Awesome Possum Dizzle. What's up, Jay Dizzle? We got Brother Tad, Jack of the Trades, William Justice, Newport, Jim Whitehead, Gina Shaw, Wendy C, Diamond G, STS, Uniquely Written, Lasombra, Mandrews XL, Patty Mills, Rusty Shackelford, Gunner, Rachel Riley, Silver Smacker, and Sombra Song, Boomer Perm. Gifted membos. Look at all those membos. Courtesy of Brian Bishop. Brian, thanks for doing that, my man. Welcome aboard 50 new amazing friends. Sorry about your names. LOL, the total mispronunciation of my name. Cecile De La Rosa. What did I say? Cecil? Sorry, Cecil? Sissel? Oh, I don't know. Sorry about that. Welcome, though. Welcome. And thank you, Brian Bishop, for bringing in 50 new membos. Amazing. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Tomorrow. Sound like I'm from Canada. Rob Stoops, Michigan Patriot, says, so what happens if the courts order him to pay it and Congress steps in and says no? Well, yeah, Congress has the power of the purse. I mean, if that money is not appropriated, like if that money gets rescinded, it's gone. Can't spend it. What's up, Rob Stoops, Michigan Patriot, says, we have averted a government shutdown. Yeah, we did. Well, I think it's got to go to the Senate, right? So, but I think it'll pass there too. Lenny Malley says, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel and share it all over the place. And we appreciate that, Lenny Malley. It's absolutely true. Share it everywhere. Glocky, when you hold a security clearance, you give the government permission by default to go through your bank, telecoms, home, if they suspect you of anything. I'd bet that if you went to these lawyers' homes, they have secret documents that they aren't properly stored or secured, and you could find a reason to pull their clearances. From Glocky. This old guy says, Perkins Coie has locations in 17 cities, plus London, Beijing, Taipei, Shanghai, London. Yeah, they're huge. It's my understanding that they will seek shortly to sublet prime office space to other legal or accounting practices. Absolutely no build out required. Yeah, right. Like they do business with governments. Those are probably their biggest accounts, and they're all cut off now. Yeah, well, good. They can go to Beijing where they belong. Ed, what's up, Ed? Ed 2276. Bringing in 10 new membos. Susan C. We got Dark Scepter. What's up, Faded? Richard Poole. What's up, Mrs. Ryan? So Very Carrie. Great Rake Jake. Lisa, James Turpin, and Schlista. Gifted membos courtesy of Ed 2276. Glocky says, the only people not involved with the Russian collusion hoax were Trump and Russia. G-Men says, why are federal workers allowed to collectively bargain and unionize when we pay them? Yeah, it's a great question. Because they're civil servants who serve us and they care about us so much. Ridiculous. Well, that's a really nice unicorn. Unicorn Monster. What's up, Unicorn Monster? Thanks for bringing in 10 new membos for us. Look who's here. Mercenary Grip. We got Ernie C. Tiki Jack. Colonel Canuck. Jason Allen. Let's Go Brandon. Wonderland Alice. Close Mom. Jeffrey Phillips. And Rachel Weidman. Gifted membos courtesy of the Unicorn Monster. Although that doesn't look like a monster. It looks like a very regal unicorn. What's up, Mickey 6? Thank you. Fist bump to you, Mickey 6. Appreciate that one, my friend. Ed 2276 says, they changed the rules to rig elections and they moved to disbar attorneys who dared to work for Trump to expose election fraud. Yeah, Ed, you're right. And they charged the attorneys. Sidney Powell got charged. Rudy Giuliani got charged. Jenna Ellis got charged. They charged the alternate electors. They charged everybody. And now they're like, Trump canceling contracts is like Nazi Germany. Give me a break, Mark. One old guy's opinion says the selective memory lawyer, Mark Elias, reads books of what could have been if he and the Dems succeeded. Hilarious. Great comment. Yeah. I was reading my Hitler books because that's what I was trying to build here. And now it's not going to happen. Uncle Bozy says the Perkins Coie lawsuit claims they are not politically biased, but behind Mark Elias, there is a beware of attack Democrats sign on his shelf. Yeah. Is there a real sign? Like, he would have a sign like that. That wouldn't surprise me. But that's pretty funny. Thank you, Uncle Bozy. Muffin Rando, 17 months as a membo, almost 2 full babies in the house, says, there is a soft serve machine in the back too. Oh, in Biden's little room. Probably like a wheelchair, maybe a bed and some ice cream with like some of those kids' toys. Like, you know how you take like the square across the loop-de-loop and you put it over here for Joe. Knox, I think we are all about done with this trans stuff. And if you recall, my great uncle was engaged to the very first trans. What? Knox? Chris can prove it from altar to altar. Wild. What a wild bit of family history. Yeah, we're done. We're done. Yeah, we don't need to indulge it anymore though. But thank you, Knox. Wild story. Knox says, I love this one. My grandmother used to say Uncle Howard was as handsome as George Raft. I had no idea who that was, but he was always very cool, as was Christine. All right, I don't really know what we're looking at here, Knox, but shout out to your fam, and thanks for being here. Hey, Rice Baby. Dun. What's up, Bruce Rice Baby? Bringing in 20 new members. Thank you, Bruce. Bringing in Don't Be Hatin', Sledgehog, Paul Verhel, Doll Ben, Jim Areola. Yep. Logan H. What's up? Six Soul, Slack Soul. Philip Donahue. We got Jackie P. We got Cody, John D, JL, Hardnose, Juju Queen, Michael Boyle, Whiteout Gaming, Kat Johnson, Fear Not, Chief Casey, and Fred Ashbaugh in the house. Gifted membos, courtesy of Bruce Rice Baby. Dun. What's up, Golden Gaming? Says NGO is pronounced no. Just drop the G. Go 47. Are you sure? I think I prefer it as Andy NGO. Michael Manson. Thanks for being a member here for 21 months, though. Michael Manson says, for 24 months, Democrats are sad folks. Hopefully they wake up just a little bit. I'm all for Democrats waking up. If they want to wake up and join Team America, we'd be happy to have you. Right? Come on, join us. But they won't. Many of them will not. Bruce Rice. What's up, Bruce? Sent this one in. Says, migration, trade routes, and demarcation lines. Wake me if something happens. Wake me if something happens. Or if something changes. If something changes. Otherwise, it's pretty status quo. Thank you for that, Bruce. We got this one from Michelle. Says, I'm a cradle Catholic. My husband is. Our kids have had the sacrament of First Communion. And I am cheering on the court's decision. Yeah. I don't want special privileges for my people or anybody's people. We want even, fair systems. It's not like, well, the Catholics should get money, but not anybody else. It's not like, oh, well, you know, the AIDS doctors should get money, but nobody else because AIDS are important to me, or Catholicism is important to me, or whatever. It's like, no. What serves American interests and directly produces a tangible benefit for the country, not this stuff that is like, well, facilitating an invasion of the country, for one. Thank you, Michelle. Joe Belcher. What's up, Joe? Thank you, Joe. Thanks for becoming a membo. And you too, Julie. Jules in the house. Thank you both for joining up, and joining us. Glenn Croy says, Andy NGO is pronounced like this. Andy NGO. Thank you, Glenn. Thanks for being a member for 19 months and for the correction. Uncle Bozy says, LOL. Elias really does have a Beware Attack Democrat sign on his shelf. It's right there over his right shoulder in the video when he compares Trump. Check it out. Beware of Attack Democrat. Oh my gosh. You're not joking. And we've made fun of him before for all of his dogs. Like, he's got dogs everywhere. I'm sure you've seen that too. Like, where was that one video we were looking at? Like, dogs everywhere. Like count the dogs. I like dogs, don't get me wrong. But like, do you have a wife or kid? Like, can they pick one of these spots? Here, right? Dog. Looks like a donkey. Dog. I don't know if that's a statue of a dog, but there's a lot of dogs. So it's like a dog on either side? Anyways, I don't know. I've seen other pictures with more dogs. It actually feels like there's less dogs in that picture than before. But yeah. Hey, G-Man, as fellow Catholics, do we have standing to join and be like, we don't want this crap? Like, Judge, nice job, Judge. Yeah, I think that's right. we can show this judge a sign of peace, you know? All right. Oh, I'm so happy with myself. Hey, what's going on? All right. So, it says, my point is that even though Christine was once Christopher, she didn't do drag shows, dance around in leather, or disrespect my family. Okay. That's what I was trying to understand she was my aunt and I thought she was beautiful. She didn't look like the freak shows that are out there. All right. Yeah. I don't even like to put those on the show, right? Okay. Anyways, thank you, Knox, for the comment and the insanity that's out there. All right, let's see who is here joining us on X. And my friends, thank you for sending those in. Really appreciate your support. Welcome new membos. Thanks to everybody who gifted new membos and is bringing in and expanding our community by leaps and bounds. We're grateful for you. Hey, what's up? Hey, Rob, Don Jr. asked that I share this with you. It is in reference to your requesting that he talked to his dad. Well, apparently Big Don has in fact watched the show. What? This is from David Smith. And this is in our old studio, man. I look pretty rough there. Check this out. See, we have what's going on over here? Oh, this is how we used to do questions. Remember? Super chats. He cannot be here alone. I'll help him finger paint. Keep up the good. All right. I'll listen to that later. Thank you for this, man. All right. So Big Don Jr. has watched the show. Whoa. Big Don has watched the show. The president. Incredible. Thank you, David Smith, for that comment, man. And thanks for having the conversation. Super cool. I appreciate you. Hey, Be Torn got nuked off YouTube. Not my tube could not be overcome. July 2024, March 2025. Be Torn got nuked from YouTube. Rest in peace, Be Torn. We'll never forget you, and we'll remember you on X and over on Locals. Hopefully it's just a technical problem. Hey, Fred. I paid my income tax for 43 years. Not a single government person will help me. Every government agency says, sorry. I better tell them I'm an illegal immigrant from Venezuela. Saying Knox Bierman is a saint. Knox Bierman is a saint. We love Knox here. And Fred, I know you do too. What's up, Be Torn? Talking about Seton Motley. Notice McBride said Madam Chair. Yeah. Yeah, very rude. So it should settle the score, right? Okay, you mispronoun someone. That person pronouns you back. It's like, that's the end of it, right? Whoa, Sergeant just gave us an update. Linda McMahon said this: as part of the department's final mission, the department today initiated a RIF. 50% of the department's workforce today. Wow, 327, right after we went live here. Today's RIF reflects our commitment to efficiency, accountability, and more. I appreciate the work of the dedicated public servants. This is a significant step in restoring the greatness of the United States education system, which is currently crap, by the way. If you're like, well, we love our education system. Really? Do you? Because our kids, I think, are like some of the dumbest in the world for our country, right? Relative to our country's capacity. It's really kind of embarrassing. But anyways, thank you for that, Sergeant GPS, for sending that one in. Let's see what else we got. Knox is in the house. We got G-Men says, peace be with you, Your Honor. Peace be with you. And now we show each other a sign of peace. One old guy's opinions. The sign on the shelf, beware attack Democrat. It shows exactly how bad Elias really is. Deluxe Knight, what's up, Deluxe Knight? Says, going to have to restart your stream again today. Been busy outside the tractor cab today. Want to give Mrs. Deluxe Knight a shout out, though. She brought my lunchtime burritos. I love wife. Amazing, Deluxe Knight. Burritos are amazing. Any wife or significant other who brings you one is deserving of so much love and much more. Thank you for your great work, Rob. Thank you, Deluxe Knight. Deluxe Knight's a farmer. He's out there feeding all of us, so we appreciate that, Deluxe Knight. Couldn't do it without you. We need our food. All right, and so, my friends, thank you for sending those in. Thanks for the updates. Thanks for the fun. Thanks for the friendship. We are going to head over to Locals now for our debrief. We'd love to see you over there, watchingthewatchers.locals.com if you want to join. Otherwise, my friends, Membos too, will be back in the morning, Tomorrow, Membo stream back on the regular schedule. So 12 noon Eastern for the Membo stream tomorrow morning. Then, of course, we'll be back for the regular show. Now, before we wrap it up, I want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths, K-Bean, Donut, Carrie B, Playin' Hooky, Dog Digger, Janek, and Jigum, and more for making the show amazing. Thanks for all of your help and for keeping this train on the tracks. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. We're going over to locals. We're going to debrief, hang out for a bit. We'd love to see you there, but if we don't, we're going to be back here tomorrow, and we're going to get into it again. It's going to be jamming. I can feel it. But in order to do that appropriately, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.